All right, in this video, we're going to be drawing the left and right side. So as I move in close to our 3D modeling on the computer here, all right, so we have sides here. All right, those are the sides that we need to draw. We're going to do them at the same time. So if I click and drag one of these sides out, there's some details that we need to look at. Specifically down here, we do have a groove called a dado, which our bottom shelf fits into. And then you can't really see it in the back. There is a rabbet, a groove in the back. And right here, as we can see a little bit better right there, move in close. We're going to cut this little groove, so we're going to show that detail as well for our back. All right, so let's transition here to my page here. I kind of got started already, just a few of the details to lay out. Again, probably best to use graph paper. If you don't, regular paper will certainly work, not a big deal. All right, up in the upper left-hand corner, I'm going to have a scale. If I'm using graph paper, if I'm using regular paper, it's going to be 1/4 inch equals 1 inch. All right, and then if you're using graph paper, one box will equal 1 inch by 1 inch. So what I went ahead and done is I divided my page in half here, just with some light pencil marks here, and notice my page is turned sideways or landscape orientation, so we can fit these two on here. Our dimensions are going to be 24 inches in height and 11 1/4 inches in width. Okay, notice I have not yet connected my rectangle down here. We'll eventually get to that part here. All right, so let's talk about scaling here. Just kind of move over to my pad of paper here. 24 inches is our height, so if we divide it by our scale, that's going to be 6 inches. All right, so on the ruler, our height is going to be 6 inches on the paper. All right, if you're using graph paper, obviously, then it would be 24 boxes. Let's go down here to our 11 1/4. Okay, if we divide that by our scaling, 2 13/16. And that's kind of a weird number. One thing I want you to recognize, it is very close to 3 inches. Okay, so we're going to approximate that as 3 inches. Okay, or 12 boxes. So that's exactly what I did. All right, so I started on my graph paper next to my dividing line, moved over a couple boxes, about a 1/2 inch, and made 2 dots here. Okay, then I went up 24 or 6 inches, and then I went across my 12 boxes or 3 inches, and then came straight down. So let's do that on both sides of the paper, and don't forget to dimension as I'm showing here. Oh yeah, don't forget to add your scale in the upper left-hand corner as well. So I'm going to pause. You can get caught up. All right, I went ahead and completed the bottom portion of our sides here. Let's just take a look at some of this detail. Okay, I'm going to do this in pencil. Eventually, I'm going to probably need to erase this, but I just want to identify the rear edge. Okay, the back edge of our cabinet. All right, so if we go ahead and take a look at the cabinet itself, this piece right here, I'm going to consider that the back edge right here. Okay. All right, so that's I'm putting those two together. Okay, so if you kind of think this is a book, here is our binding, here's going to be our front edge. Of course, this is our rear edge, so I'm defining that. So the furthest outer edge of our drawing here, this dimension right here is going to be 1.5 inches. Okay, and then you noticed over here that's 1.5 inches. So the two outer legs are going to be 1.5 inches. They're going to look in the front. So this is the edge that I'm talking about right there. It's 1.5 inches. Okay. So now let's review some scalings here. 1.5 inches. We take a look at this. Divide that by 4, we get 3/8 of an inch, or a box and a half on graph paper. Okay. And then the other leg, the rear edge leg, where the two legs on the inside portion are going to be 2 inches. And then, of course, this space is going to be 1.5 inches. All right, so I'm going to stop it, go ahead and get caught up. All right, looking at some more detail here. All right, so I'm going to take that 1.5 inch line. I'm going to draw it all the way up. Again, this is going to be called a stile. All right, the other edge, okay, the other edge, the rear edge, we had a dimension of 2 inch. Again, this is going to be a stile, but this happens to be a little bit wider than the previous one, so we're going to draw that straight up, and then of course duplicate it on the other drawing. So go ahead and do that. All right, so we just got done drawing these stiles. Okay, here's the front stile and here's the rear stile. Okay, now we're going to draw the top rail and then the bottom rail. Eventually we'll get into that detail. So if we look at it this side, this will be the outside of the side here. So here we go, top rail, bottom rail. Let's draw that. Taking a look at the drawing, I went ahead, and again, that's going to be a 2-inch member. Okay, 2 inches and 2 inches. Okay. Now a 2-inch is 2 boxes. Okay, on the graph paper, or 1/2 inch for our scaling. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw that. All right, going ahead and add in some more detail, some labeling. All right, like I mentioned, okay, this is stile. This happens to be stile A. We're going to call that A. This is 1.5 inches in width. And then stile B is going to be a 2-inch. Okay, so I did that on both. So let's go ahead and get that labeling in. All right, moving ahead here, getting some more work done in between the two stiles is going to run a rail. So again, I'm talking about that member that's in blue right there. Okay, and kind of go into our drawing. So we're going to have 2 boxes or 1/2 inch here. Okay. And again, those are 2 inches and they run between. So that's going to be rail C, rail D. They're all 2 inches. I'm not going to repeat the 2-inch labeling because redundancy. All right, so let's go ahead and get that detail. All right, now that we got that done, just a little bit more labeling is our next step. We're going to call this interior area, panel P1, panel P1. So if we take a look at our computer here, the panel is that member right there. Okay. All right. So let's show that detail, and then we'll move on to the dados and rabbets for each one of these. All right. So the next detail that we're going to show here is the rabbet here. It's going to be on the middle portion of our page, the rear edges. Again, if we take a look at our, maybe zoom out so you get a little bit of perspective here. So we're talking about that little groove that needs to be cut, and that is called a rabbet cut. And what we're going to do is we're going to show that detail, and we're not going to necessarily draw that to scale, even though it's a 1/4 inch. What I want you to do is just to visually kind of make that work out to identify that cut. The next cut is called a dado cut, and we're going to move on to that eventually, but why don't you pause and get caught up. All right, so next we're going to create the dado cut. It's going to go on the inside of each of the sides here. So it's right down in here. The bottom shelf is going to go in here. So let's take a look at our 3D model here, and you can see here is our cut that we need to include. All right, so next, our dimension. The next thing we need to know is our dimension. So from the top, all right, the top edge of that dado is 3 inches. Okay, so from the bottom edge of the stile to the top edge of that cut is 3 inches. Since this is 1/2 inch, okay, very difficult to get the right scaling on that. I would like you to just to visually make it work out just like you see here. And that cut runs from edge to edge on both pieces. All right, so why don't you go ahead and finish off that. All right, so to really finish this off, let's make sure we have our labeling done. I did include this dimension over here, that 3-inch dimension to the top of our dado cut. And then of course I labeled here a 1/2 inch dado, telling us what that is. Okay, so really that pretty much concludes this drawing. Nice job.